The world was white. The snowstorm had swallowed the city, burying everything beneath thick, relentless drifts. Streetlights flickered dimly through the swirling gusts, their glow barely penetrating the icy fog. Wind roared between buildings, howling like a beast on the hunt. The roads, once bustling with life, were now silent, save for the occasional crunch of heavy boots against snow as a few late-night wanderers hurried home. But in the midst of this frozen wasteland, hidden beneath a crumbling wooden crate near an alleyway, lay a trembling kitten. It was small, far too small to be out in a storm like this. Its tiny body was covered in short, damp fur, its whiskers dusted with frost. The pads of its paws were raw from the biting cold, and its tail curled tightly around its frail frame in a desperate attempt to hold on to whatever warmth it had left. The kitten had been abandoned, left to fend for itself when the storm had started hours ago. At first, it had tried to stay near the doorstep where it had last seen its mother, but that door had slammed shut, and no one had come back. The once welcoming home was now just another dark, lifeless shadow in the storm. The cold had crept in fast, turning the air into something that cut like knives. The kitten had waited, meowing softly, hoping for someone to hear. But the snow had answered with silence. Time passed. How much, the kitten didn't know. Hunger gnawed at its belly. Fear clawed at its tiny heart. Its ears twitched with every distant sound. Was that a voice? Was someone coming? Then, a cruel gust of wind lifted the crate slightly, sending an avalanche of snow down upon the kitten's tiny body. It let out a startled squeak as the sudden weight smothered it. Panic surged. It struggled, kicking its tiny paws until it wriggled free. But now, the little shelter it had was gone. There was no choice now, it had to move. Step by step, the kitten forced itself forward. Its legs wobbled beneath its weight, paws sinking deep into the snow. The world around it was a blur of white and gray, shapes shifting in and out of focus through the blizzard. It tried to follow the faint outline of the street, but the snow had covered everything. The wind pushed against it, stronger than before. Icy flakes clung to its fur, chilling it to the bone. The kitten meowed, but the wind swallowed its tiny voice. No one would hear. No one would come. Still, it walked. A few minutes passed. Then more. The kitten's breathing grew ragged. Its tail dragged behind it. The cold wasn't just biting anymore, it was sinking in, creeping into its bones. Every instinct screamed at it to stop, to curl up, to sleep. But sleep was dangerous. Sleep meant never waking up. Somewhere in the distance, headlights flashed briefly through the snowfall. The kitten perked up. A car? That meant people. It stumbled forward, its tiny body shaking with effort. It just needed to make it a little farther. Then, its paw hit something solid. A sheet of ice. Before it could react, its weakened body slipped. The world spun as the kitten tumbled forward, rolling down a small, snow-covered slope. It crashed into a pile of trash bags, landing with a soft thud. For a long moment, the kitten didn't move. Everything hurt. Its little lungs burned. The cold was worse now, pressing in on all sides. It tried to lift its head, but exhaustion weighed it down. Was this it? Was this where its journey ended? No. Something deep inside, some primal instinct, flared to life. The kitten let out a weak, pitiful meow. Then another. And another. It didn't matter if no one could hear. It had to keep trying. The meows grew softer. Its strength was fading. Its tiny eyes fluttered shut. And then, footsteps. The walk back was a blur. The kitten barely noticed as the stranger carried it through the snow-covered streets, their pace quick and determined. The storm raged on, but it didn't matter now. Then, warmth. A door opened, and the storm disappeared behind them. The sudden change was almost overwhelming, the smell of wood, the glow of a fireplace, the softness of blankets. The stranger knelt down, unwrapping the tiny creature from the scarf. "There you go, little one," they whispered. "You're safe now." The kitten shivered, adjusting to the warmth. A soft blanket was draped over its tiny body. A bowl of warm milk was placed nearby. The kitten hesitated, then weakly leaned forward, lapping at the milk. It was the first thing it had eaten in hours, and the warmth spread through its small body like magic. The stranger smiled, watching. "Looks like you're staying with me now." The kitten looked up, blinking slowly. Its tiny body still ached, but for the first time in what felt like forever, it wasn't scared. It wasn't lost. It had found home. Days passed. The storm faded. The kitten, once fragile and trembling, grew stronger. It had a bed now, a small, cozy basket lined with soft fabric. A name tag was placed near its bowl. The stranger had called it Snowy, a tribute to the night it had survived. The kitten would never forget the storm. The fear, the cold, the loneliness, it had all been real. But so was the kindness that had saved it. And as it curled up in its new home, warm and safe, it purred softly, knowing that sometimes, even in the darkest storm, a miracle can happen.